The genre of city builders or colony builders is interesting to look at because people want wildly different things from those games. Some people come at it from the perspective of, hey, I want to push it to the brink, right? I want to see things burn and take things to the limit. Natural disasters, you just want to see it bend and break. Some other people like me want to create like an efficient layout and just have this well-oiled machine, a robust colony that is able to withstand anything the game throws at it. Either way, the game has to tread this very thin line of throwing challenge your way, but at the same time, it can't feel like you're always on the back foot, always reactionary to things. There has to be a way in which you can be proactive and prevent some of these issues, or I guess foresee them and prepare for them in a way that has you ahead of the curve. Today's game does that very well and satisfies both of those kinds of groups, I would argue. So today we're talking about Surviving Mars, a game by Paradox Interactive. Those guys have done an insane amount of really deep games. You can talk about Stellaris, Cities, Skylines, Europa Universalis, Crusader Kings, the list goes on, Battletech, right? Those guys create some really deep games, and sometimes the learning curve is a bit harsh on them. This game has some tutorials in it, but really it's learn as you play, okay? And we'll see in a little bit how the game plays out. I'll give you a little bit of starter tips as well so you can get your feet on the ground as you experience the game. And I'll show you what an endgame colony looks like and what are some of the cool things you have to look forward to. Hello everybody, my name is Johnny and I'm doing a series of videos here where I put a spotlight on one of my favorite games every week, and we talk about the work done by the developers and we throw out some much needed positivity in the gaming space. So if you get value from the video, make sure to engage with some of the stuff down below. And remember, I'm live on Twitch Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Let's go on with the video. So the game is what it says on the tin, okay? You are trying to survive in Mars, you're building a colony, you want it to be a self-sufficient colony that doesn't rely on resources from planet Earth. Of course, at first, you only have robots and limited resources, and you have to kind of build up from there with basic resources that you have access to from the surface of the planet, and then later on, you get access to mining resources from within the planet. You can also import resources back from planet Earth, trade with other factions. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's been added after the initial release as well. One of the most recent content updates was a terraforming update where you can change cliffs into ramps or flat areas. You can plant seeds. You can change the temperature of the planet by burning fossil fuels. And then that also allows you to create water deposits on the planet. And with that, the whole cycle of life, right? So you get vegetation to continue to grow and all of that good stuff. So why am I talking about this game specifically? There is some magic in this to me that has me wanting to start a new game every single time, okay? Every time I get to the end and my colony is either dead or happily stable and self-sufficient, all I can think about is I want to start a new game and I want to try something slightly different. I want to do things in a slightly more optimal way or try something new. And it keeps it really fresh for me. There's something about the satisfactory nature of laying down the cable lines and the pipes and the buildings, how the buildings look, the little units moving around. You can see, of course, the people. You can zoom in all the way and you can see them moving around in the domes and all of that stuff. It just really works for me. I'm also a big sci-fi fan and I'm really into, the idea of colonizing other worlds and all of that. So all of it for me comes together as a nice package, as they say. And so I would recommend you check it out. It's usually pretty cheap and you can find it often on sale. But let's go into the game and take a look at what it has to offer. I'll show you first how the game starts off. I'll give you some quick starter tips. And then I'll show you some of the cool late game stuff that you will eventually get to. So we're going to jump into a new game and I'll show you a couple of the things that you're going to go through here. First off, in mission setup, you have to choose the mission sponsor, okay? Each sponsor will give you different levels of funding and also specific tech. So for example, we can see here, there's a terraforming initiative with tech specific to terraforming relative to the content update we talked about earlier, okay? Space Y of course, has the Dragon rocket, which is faster and requires less fuel. It also has a big solar array of panels that you can use for energy early on. It's very, very useful. You can also choose your mystery. You could go for an easy one to start with. I just leave it at random. These are simply things that will happen through your playthrough and will make things a little bit interesting for you. You could also customize the rocket payload for the first launch. I would just leave it at default because you're probably not going to know enough to min-max things at this level. Next up, we got to choose a colony site. And you can see the different threats and resources on each site. Over there, there's some predetermined sites, but of course you could choose any hex on the planet available. You just kind of have to balance out the resource availability with threats and what difficulty you want to be facing here. Realistically, at first you want something low threats and high resources. Once you load in, you can use the probes that are given to you to reveal some territory. And once you reveal territory, what you can do is you can be more informed about where you want to land. So, of course, there we already see some water and concrete deposits, which is kind of a promising location for us to land, right? So let's just pick a landing spot nearby those resources and we'll get things rolling here. So that's our Dragon rocket landing there. I love the new Dragon rockets they added. Every other rocket looks different for the different sponsors too. This is kind of new based on SpaceX, of course, and I think it looks pretty dope. So you can see you can zoom in really, really close there. You can see our vehicle, and then after you'll see all of our little drones coming out too. There we go. That's a little, who's a little good drone? Who's a good little drone? Take a look at the research tech tree here. This is going to be also randomized for each of your runs. So the order in which tech will be available to you will be unique in every run. And it's possible you don't even get to all of the tech in a single run. We're going to set up some deposits for materials, okay? We're going to have a universal deposit, and then we're going to have some specific ones for things like metals and things that we can pick up from the surface. You can already see around the place some metal deposits on the surface. That's the low-hanging fruit, right? We want to pick those up with our little cart there, with our transport vehicle. So the first thing we're going to be setting up is some power. So we have the solar array from Space Y, which we're going to be setting up, and we're going to set up a drone hub that gives us additional drones, and we can also then use the drones from the spacecraft and just control them from the hub instead of controlling them from the rocket. So that's kind of our starting point there. And you can see here, you can set up a transport route. That means you're telling the car to take any metals in the region and then deposit them in the deposit. Okay, so next up, we're going to need another supply rocket, and we're going to send over two new vehicles, the Commander and the Explorer. The Commander has drones that it can control remotely anywhere, so you could go anywhere and then have drones at your disposal without the need of a drone hub. That's going to be handy. The Explorer will allow us to analyze anomalies on the surface of the planet, and that gives us just boosts to research and other goodies. So we want that as soon as we can as well. And then in addition, we're just sending over some food in preparation for when we set up a dome, just so we have a bit of a food surplus to start with and kick things off. All right, let's jump ahead a little bit. So we already have our solar array panel built. We have a concrete extractor built as well. And we just built our water extractor that you can see there. Now, we need to build some pipes, okay? And whenever you build cables and pipes, very important you use the hotkeys. So you can do Control-C and Control-V for pipes, and then that's just so much nicer. It makes it really, really nice to build stuff out like this. So we got to connect up the pipes. We're going to be extracting water into a tower for now, so that's just kind of being saved up in case there's an issue with the extractor. We have some redundancy, right? And this idea is going to come back where we want redundancy for everything, because there could be meteors falling and all of a sudden our source of power or resources is interrupted, right? So then in those cases, you need some kind of reserve, whether it's a tank or a secondary source. So you can see here our fuel refinery is set up, and this is the basic husk of our foothold on the planet. Okay, we got fuel for the ships so that they can kind of come back and forth a little bit. We have steady influx of energy coming from the solar panels, at least during the day. We have some good concrete and metals being picked up as well. One key thing to be doing here in the early game is make sure you're picking up any metals on the surface around you, the way I showed you before with the transport routes. And then also go to all of the research points, the yellow points that you see there on the map, go to them with your research vehicle to analyze them. You're going to get some good research boosts from that. Okay, so what are we missing to have some people here on the planet? We need oxygen, okay? And the way we get it is building a Moxie. So the Moxie will consume water and power and generate oxygen. So we're going to build a Moxie. We're going to hook it up to a tank, to an oxygen tank this time, like we said before. And now we're going to have all the basic stuff we need for sustaining life. So once this is set up, we can start to think about what kind of dome do we want to set up. All right, so we've jumped ahead nicely here and we have our first dome built. We have some apartments. We have a ranch for cattle, and we can see there our beautiful rocket landing with people this time. So these guys are going to have to run all the way from the rocket into the dome, and you can see the little guys running there. You can actually zoom in all the way and see them running too, which we'll do in a moment. Yeah. And they're in. Boom. And then in here, we have some groceries, we have living space, we have research buildings, and just kind of enough space for them to get things going early on here. But you can kind of see how things go in the early game here. You set up a small dome and then you expand, right? You build another bigger dome after that, and you can connect domes together, which we'll see in a little bit as well. So here I'm showing you a little bit of the terraforming stuff. Ignore the alien invasion, okay? That's one of the mysteries that's going on in this particular run. But you can see some of the area here has been flattened. This is the terraforming I talked about. We have now water as well, some lakes being created. We have also areas being seeded. You can see the green areas there, kind of extending all over the place. You can also see the temperature meter at the top, 9.15. That means the temperature is going up. That will cause vegetation and water levels to also go up with time as we burn more and more fossil fuels. Okay, so here we have a really endgame colony, self-sufficient, stable, and with most of the tech unlocked, all of the wonders built as well. So you can see a lot of the cool stuff that you can build in here. A bunch of domes, most of them interconnected. We have over there the artificial sun, which generates an ungodly amount of power for all of our colony. And then we have a bunch of other wonders. I don't want to spoil what all of them are, but one of the really cool ones is the space elevator, which allows you to import and export goods really, really efficiently. And you can just see the insanely large amounts of resources we have piled up there. And $16 billion as well. So we really don't need money at this point, and we don't need to import stuff unless something weird happens. So we're really in a great place in this one, and this is kind of what you have to look forward to in an endgame colony. So now with the magic of editing, let's go back to Big Johnny. But also, it's on Game Pass. I forgot to mention it earlier. So if you're in the market for something like this, go check it out and then thank me later, okay? Or throw tomatoes my way. I like tomatoes, so either is fine. But regardless, question of the day for you. Hit me down below. What is your favorite city builder or colony builder game and why? Okay, I want to hear from you. Stay tuned for the next video. If you enjoyed, interact with some of the stuff down below. It helps a great deal. Okay, it's kind of rough nowadays, right? And you know, everybody wins. So anyways, thanks for watching. Catch you next time. I would just leave it for the default. Ah, fuck!